I think the last part of this book is probably the part that teachers get the most
Yeah.
excited about.
Yep.
Would you agree? Yeah.
Yes.
I want to make a poster for my classroom with all the things.
I know. So I mean, but how do you consolidate all the things? I think that's what we're going to try to do today. I don't know. I've read it 3 times now, and
Yes.
every time I find myself underlining more stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, that was good, but this is good too. So I'm going to underline that too. Yeah, there's all kinds of good stuff here. All right, I have a link in the chat that I am going to just go ahead and share with you for a Jamboard, but we're not going to go there yet. So don't go there yet. But just, kind of keep that link in your chat back pocket. I think, it's possible that of these sections that are in part 3, attention, active engagement, error feedback, consolidation, that maybe there's one that resonates with you the most, or just it's like that's the section you're going to go to first. So what I would like to do is actually I'm going to share my screen. All right, so here's what the Jamboard looks like. I made a page for each one of these things, and I thought that I would put us into 3 rooms to begin with, and just with your folks in your room, brainstorm a little about what stood out to you in that section. So room 1 would be attention, and room 1 is Jamboard 1, room 2 would be active engagement, room 3 would be error feedback. I'm going to say, let's not, mainly because there's not very many of us, but let's keep a consolidation and reconciling for for synthesizing in the last 10 15 20 minutes of our time together, and just concentrate on these first 3 rooms. And what I would like to do is for 5 minutes in your room with your people, make notes on your board, and then after the 5 minutes is up, you can visit any board and put stuff on it. So you're not going to be confined to just commenting on your own board. This is going to be kind of like one of those board meetings where people walk around and look at each other's boards and put sticky notes on each other's boards about things. All I would ask is that on your board, pick a color of sticky note and stick to it. Or if you want to just write text on the board, that's fine. But when you visit someone else's board, make your note be a different color. So we see what we started with and then what we progressed to. True confessions, my research area was whiteboarding. And so I have very specific ideas about, what I want to see a developmental trajectory of thinking, right? So, so I'm hoping to be able to do that by doing this. So I am going to stop sharing for the moment and make some rooms for us. I'm going to let the Zoom decide who goes in what room. If room 1, you're going to do slide 1, room 2, you're going to do slide 2, and room 3, you're going to do slide 3. And Donna made it. Yay, Donna. I am going to create these rooms, but before I send you to these rooms, I need to give Donna the Jamboard because she's not going to be able to see it in the old chat stuff. So once again, there's the Jamboard that we're going to be working on. And Donna, you're about to be sorted into a room. 5 minutes on the board that's assigned to your room, and then the rest of the time you can roam the boards and put whatever thoughts you have. And then we're going to get back together after about, I don't know, when I see that people's thoughts are starting to, like not accumulate on the boards, probably at about 10 or 12 minutes in, I'll call you all back and we'll have a big conversation. Where was my favorite quote? It was in this section about passive organisms do not learn.
Or we can just, I think we can just type. Right,
Okay.
and other people can add sticky notes. Add image, select, pen. I want to type. Is there a typing tool? Yes, there it
I
is.
think you have to take this, yeah. Okay, so I put like 1 up there.
Yep, I see it.
And then I liked when it said, while it's crucial for students to be motivated and engaged, it doesn't mean they should be left to their own devices. Like, just go figure this out. So I thought that was, because I think when people hear constructivism, they freak out at the middle school level anyway, and they say these kids can't just do it on their own. Like,
And that's true.
yeah, some students are watchers, how to make them doers. I like it. I like it. Yeah, how to make them doers. That is true. That is,
So it's really, I don't know how this happened, but at the very beginning of the class, I had like 3 or 4 students. And just by how they carried themselves on day 1, I'm like, these kids are going to be watching and they're not going to do well. And I don't know how I got that signal, but it's turned out to be true.
so they don't really like, they don't participate within their group
In their
or-
group, right? They let whoever they're paired with basically do all of the thinking. And I've tried all kinds of things like walking around and physically taking the marker and put it in their hand and say, okay, you're in charge now. But it has not changed anything. Okay. That new post-it is too small for me to read.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it bigger.
I mean, I have found a couple of things help. One is trying to vary the style of engagement, not always group it the same way. Do smaller group things and larger group things and individual things and then sharing. And the other thing is, for a long time now, I've changed the groups every day. And that also
I change them every week. I don't change them every day.
Yeah.
But realistically speaking, every week in my school means after 3, they spend like 3 classes together and then they get switched. Well, they did away with science having more minutes than other classes at my school. And we're down to some incredibly small, like 160 minutes a week.
we recently moved into our new building like a week or so ago, and because of the new furniture arrangements they gave us, I changed from having groups of 4 to having groups of 3, and it made all the difference in the world.
Really?
For some of the kids who were just hangers on, they had to be more central after that.
Yeah, that's my default size is 3. Again, furniture driven, but also because it did seem to, I have tried, if you don't have a number divisible by 3, what do? And I have tried having groups of 4 to make it work out. And instead I have 2 groups of 2.
Yeah, it's
That's better than 1 group of 4.
Yeah.
But no, this whole section on active engagement, it just rang so true.
Yep.
No, even as an adult, I say that, like when I'm, like when I was getting trained in certain, I was the tech liaison, so I would get trained in the software and then have to go teach it to the teachers. And I would always say, if you don't stop doing it and let me do it, it's not gonna sink into my brain.
But active engagement can be of different types for different students, right? I mean, you might have, I have had students who they are the watchers, but they're actively watching, like they're taking notes and hassling it out and trying different things. And that kid's learning. It's just those kids are very rare.
Yeah.
I have some kids like that, and I have a couple of kids who really like to withdraw and sit by themselves and do it by themselves. And they're doing just fine because they're they just find that they focus and do it better when they're just not distracted by the conversation.
What I love about so much in this book is that we can bring hard facts to the kids. Like, you know, we can say, I don't care what you think, you can't multitask, and here's how I know. Right. And when you present that, they actually start changing their approach, and it helps them a lot.
Yeah.
You know, oh, no, you don't have a learning style, right? And here's how I know. This was the section that wasn't all that new to me. The other three
Right.
were mind-blowing, but
Yeah, this section seems like we should, like, we all probably already know this just based on experience alone, right?
that's why we're doing modeling.
Yeah, that's exactly why we're doing modeling.
Though not only, right? We do modeling. I think it also relates to the consolidation piece, right? I mean, organizing things in terms of models works because it helps them to be able to consolidate. All right, we've popped in to look around now.
Then I'm going to go look at error feedback,
Okay.
because
Because that's the one I do worst. So
yeah, and I'm going to say that this is prompting me to realize that we have one course that for freshmen that has been a problem course, partially because of the nature of the course and partially because of the students who are in it. It's our worst performing students, our weakest students, and it really needs to have standards-based grading.
Hmm.
It really, these kids, because they get discouraged and turned off by failing a test, right?
I'm using portfolio grading this year with my freshman physics. And they get their quizzes back. I write on them, I give comments, and that's all. And they choose which ones to put in their portfolio to show their growth. And I don't know, it's not hugely rigorous, but it keeps them motivated and engaged.
Are they digital portfolios or are they
They get
paper?
papers, but they take photos of the papers and they put them into a OneNote portfolio.
OneNote? Okay.
Yeah.
My school talked about doing it for the longest time, and they couldn't quite come together on an agreement on how these portfolios were going to travel with the student from grade 9, 10, 11, and 12.
I'm not trying to do that. That'd be hard.
Okay. So it's just for your class. It's not like
Yeah.
for every science class that.
Yeah. I mean, the chemistry next year also has portfolios, but it's not the same one. It's a new one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So there's a sticky on the screen there. I don't know how to add stickies. I got to figure this out. But there's a sticky on the screen there that says, "How is this different from providing the right answer?" And I would say that Dehane would argue that it's okay to provide the right answer if you do it at the right time.
Yeah, that's what I got. I agree with you, Nicholas. That's what I got, is that they really do benefit from being told, no, this is wrong. You should do it this way. But, you know, after they've tried and failed, and when they're sitting there, you know, frustrated by it, they're at a receptive point, right? At the right kind of frustration. You don't wait until they're ready to throw the marker on the floor and stomp out of the room.
All right. We have 25 seconds. We have to
All
go
right, I'm
back.
going to see if I
Yeah,
can.
I'm gonna look
If
at the
you
first
look
one.
for the 1, 2, 3, fourth icon down, Nick, it looks like a little piece of paper with the turned up corner. That's a sticky.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I'm gonna
Okay.
head back.
I'm going to put this over.
Here we come. So did you have enough time? It's okay. You can keep posting thoughts if you like. But hopefully you had enough time to comment where the spirit moved you. All right, I'm going to share my screen. And no, that one. Okay. And maybe we'll just take this in the order that they came. Attention. What grabbed you? And will someone please expand on the gorilla experiment?
Yeah, I put that up there. I think if I remember correctly, that was where they had a group of people kind of doing some task, like maybe counting how many times something went by, and in the middle of whatever they're watching, a gorilla comes into
It
the
was
scene.
the number of basketball passes between
Yeah,
the
yeah, thank
on a
you.
team.
Yeah.
When I was working at DuPont, we had like the leader of the Central Research for Material Science totally misused that. You know, he
Oh.
showed it to us, and I, of course, did not see the gorilla because I was counting the basketball passes.
Mhm, mhm.
And his message was that, you know, we were all failing to multitask properly.
Ooh.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a place full of idiocy. Never mind, I didn't say that out loud.
Oh,
I don't know. Do you find yourself wanting to tell your students about this?
I was
Yeah.
I was gonna try it with them, but I didn't have enough time between when I realized it was in there. I remember taking a few psychology
here.
classes. Yeah, I
Yes.
know.
I
I was
remember
thinking
that.
Experiment video. All you have to do is go there for gorilla experiment video. And yeah, I remember the first time I saw that too. It was quite revealing.
Yeah, I do it with my students, and some of them have seen
You.
it before, and then the other ones are like, "What gorilla?"
So what I'm getting from this is that most of you are teaching in classrooms where you're not allowed to forbid the phone. Is that true?
yes.
I
Right,
can take the phones. It's just a battle.
Yeah, so here's one of the benefits of teaching at a Catholic school. I can take the phone, and if they give me a hard time, I can give them a detention. So
Yes.
I don't have to fight the phone in the classroom.
We
And-
actually just had like a committee of teachers, parents, and students talking about what we should do with cell phones. And I think as a group of us faculty, we're going to try to convince more of our faculty to use the cell phone pocket holders so that we can be more consistent and get kids to put them away.
Mhm.
And it's a tipping point thing. I actually am not very good at having them put them up or put them away, but because so many of the classes in my school do, they don't use them in class unless they need them.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, it's like critical mass.
Mhm, mhm.
Huh. Cool. What else? What else jumps out at us with attention? The importance of
Well-
eye contact.
What grabs me, and this relates to he took this first of his big four chunks, he made it the first of his 13 things at the end too, right? Is the
Right.
importance of what am I doing at the beginning of every class to make sure they're all actually paying attention to what we're doing? Right? How am I making this interesting? And I think that's hard to do all the time.
Mhm.
So last year we had the Building Thinking Classrooms book club. So over the summer, I bolted all my whiteboards to vertical surfaces, and I make my students stand at the whiteboards, and it has really raised the level of attention without really me doing anything other than put the whiteboards vertical.
Huh.
And I don't let them sit there. Some of them want to pull up a stool and sit. By the way, I don't let them do that either. It's like you have to stand at the whiteboard. It's a huge difference. And I was skeptical that it would be a difference, but it's an absolutely enormous difference.
Do you
It-
find that I have a question with that because I'm trying that recently, and I find the whiteboards are on the wall, they're attached to the wall, right, all around the room, and I find that the large space between them and the furniture in between kind of gets in the way of the conversation. Do you find that?
So I don't have a large space between them because I have a weird classroom with very little wall space. The whiteboards are sort of all along two of the sides near each other.
Okay.
It's where I could see how there could be problems, but and the other thing is I will often make any particular whiteboard the front of the classroom by going to it, and if I need to put something on a whiteboard, I'll take over a student whiteboard and I'll write there instead of on the teacher whiteboard, which due to wall space shortage is two of the student whiteboards anyway.
Yeah, Nicholas, I've been doing that too. I've been using we have some stands. It's a stand. It's not a tripod that the whiteboard fits in.
Just a block of
And
wood, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
with a little
Groove,
slice.
yeah, yeah.
Right. And they're spaced out. And we have a situation where we have like the lab pods in the back of the room, and then the desks are in the front of the room. So it is cut up by furniture, but they're mobile, right? I can move them around, and I can even move them onto a couple desks if I need to. And kind of try to do that. It gets cumbersome at times, but I think having them work in a standing position. So I spread them throughout the lab and all over the room, and then I move them as needed so that we can discuss. Either I move the kids or I move the whiteboards. It's constant. I get my steps in. I'm constantly moving.
And then I have kids that want to take it and lay it down because it's easier to write on. And I'm like, nope. And I pull it and stand it back up on them.
Huh.
Yeah, I made those boards with the slots in them. I don't feel it supports the whiteboard well enough for them to write on it.
Yeah, I'm
Harder.
not sure they can.
But there was, I saw something recently where people were taking two whiteboards and making a triangle. And so they're braced at the base and they're held together at the top. That looked much sturdier. And I'm going to be teaching next year in a classroom where that might be a really good thing, because I'm going to have peninsulas with a group on either side. So you put this whiteboard tent in the middle. I think it's going to work really well.
One thing our fancy new building we just got comes with, which is nice. So these things called idea boards. They're vertical whiteboards on wheels.
Huh.
And
Wow. Wow, that is fancy.
about the size of our whiteboards we use.
I was
And
also
do you
gonna
have enough
say-
of them to like do a whole class?
No.
I was going to say also, if you have in a chemistry room, you have ring stands that make excellent easels. They really do. Whether they sit on the base or put two of them up or lean it against against it. And mine are peninsulas all around a middle seating area. So the whiteboards are automatically in three sides of the room when they're vertical, though I let them write horizontally. I've never thought to put them vertically while they're working, but they discuss vertically. To get the more sense of eye contact, though, I also have them discussing things in half class groups. It's like a board meeting, but only half the class, to cut down the number of people that they have to interact with, and the more eyes they can make contact with, and the more people can actually converse. And I found that the conversation with those whiteboards went up substantially just by putting them in a place where the whole class wasn't watching that conversation. Just half.
Yeah. In my research, I found that when students were all facing one way, they didn't talk to each other as much. So, with your whiteboards on the wall, especially if there's, some board, the board of, the moment, they're not looking at each other. Do they still talk to each other? Or do they talk to the teacher?
My students talk to each other.
They talk to each
Because
other,
they're around, they're not all facing the same way. They're around three sides of the room.
right?
And I'm behind them.
Right,
Because
but
they're
they're
all
facing
facing out.
outward. They're not facing one another when they're looking at the boards, right?
Oh, so yeah, you're talking about like having a board meeting.
Having a board meeting, they're facing, if they want to look at boards, they're facing the walls as opposed to facing each other, so that like their eyeballs are interacting.
Yeah, but they have to see all the boards, they have to look across the room.
Right.
So that then they're looking at each other.
So they do look at each other.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, I just wondered how it would impact that.
But I would say that my board meetings are maybe the weakest part of my pedagogy. So
Oh, really? Huh. Have you ever read Dwayne Davian's modeling discourse management pieces?
I have. And I had a great workshop with him last summer at the AAPT.
Oh,
And I have been working on this, but it still remains the weakest part of my pedagogy.
yeah. One of the things that he did, I took data in his classroom for a semester, and one of the things that I really liked that he did was he sat them in a circle, and their whiteboards were leaning against their knees, and they could all see each other and all see all the boards. But periodically, he would take a board and throw it out in the middle of the circle. And that was like, okay, that's the consensus whiteboard, and somebody's, crawls in there and starts writing on it, and the ideas come flowing into the center of the circle. And he did that often enough. The kids got really comfortable with it, and they had, stellar conversations. So anyway, okay, so attention. Anything else we want to say about attention before we stroll on over to the next one?
The only thing I wanted to say real quick was we were pointing out that we're talking about cell phone conversation, that it's all based on cognitive science, what those folks are doing with those cell phones, right? And then they are laser focused on getting the attention of those kids, and they are using science to do it. And unfortunately, it's really tough to beat them at their own game. So just wanted to point that out. So like if we want attention, like using cognitive science,
Right.
it is really, really effective, and cell phone designers have proven it.
Yeah. Well, and computers, the people who design websites and other things have been studying user experience for a really long time. And user experience studies changed dramatically when everybody had a phone in their pocket, because the screen, which was large, suddenly you had to do all the things with the tiny screen, and yet they've done it. They've figured out how to do all the things that you want to do on a web page on a tiny screen. But yeah, user experience research was a really big deal when I was doing my graduate studies. All right, let's walk over to active engagement. Passive organisms do not learn.
I think as teachers, well, it's good that we all read this section, but we could have all
Written it?
written it. Do I dare say that? I don't want to say it. Like, this is our experience. You have to be active in some way. Like Nick said, even if you're taking notes, that's actively getting it into your brain. Yeah, I couldn't have written it, but maybe the rest of you could have. But
Well, as a team, we could have written it, right?
there you go.
I would put it this way. I think it's the part that was least surprising. It provided evidence for stuff we already knew. Some of the other sections were revelatory, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I walked down the corridors of my school, and in 90% of the classrooms, 99% of the classrooms, the students are sitting silently in rows, taking notes from the teacher at the front of the room.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say something about that. So you mentioned the taking notes part. And there was one quote in the section, which I think is captured on one of the orange Post-its, about that the only way that students are learning is to be motivated, active, engaged, and generating mental models, which I think is, it's just such a page out of modeling instruction, that generating mental models. But the taking notes, in the course of my teaching career, at the risk of sounding old, but when I started,
Oh, come on.
when I started teaching, the students would come with just a blank spiral notebook, and we would, in those days too, just copy what I put down on the board, but at least they were writing everything. And then I took time off and had kids, and I came back, and now we're filling in blanks on these packets that we're giving them. And it's a fill in the blank, mindless exercise. That how is that helping them to build any kind of model? other than I can fill in the blank when it matches the verbiage coming out of your mouth.
Mhm,
And,
mhm.
and,
Right,
and-
because blanks have right answers, right?
right, one right answer.
One right answer, the right answer.
And so, that's somebody referenced the building thinking classrooms that we were just talking about in the last section. There's a whole section about note taking and how it can destroy students, but how can we do it thoughtfully so that we're helping them to generate their own meaning and their own models so that it's meaningful. It's really interesting. The whole note thing was just...
So like the other use of the blank page, right? You get home from this, or you finish this class. Okay, now get a blank page and reproduce everything that you learned here in an organized way. And that's
I have
Yeah.
students who do that. They come back to school with all these rearranged and color-coded notes. I'm like, great, good. That's one way to do it. Yes.
I was telling my group that in my last unit on gas laws, I had them do a summary chart instead of a quiz at the end. And basically give them a list of, I think you have to maybe help train them a little bit about how some kids can do that already, what you were describing, like take the concepts and make that beautiful note, that's going to help them. But I think some training in that area for kids can help, where you can kind of show them examples or show them proposed ways that they might organize. Like, here's the 3 concepts we learned yesterday, like put them on a piece of paper or use the whiteboard to brainstorm and then have them make it themselves or something to connect those ideas. But I've always been really pleased with the summary charts that I get, and I think they learn a lot from them.
I think
I used to give open note tests. And I would confine them to, those really big note cards that are like 5 by 8. The day before the test, I would hand them out. Everyone would get a 5 by 8 note card, and they could put whatever notes they want on that card, and bring it to the test with it and use it and then staple it to their test. Those cards were so interesting. They were far more interesting than the tests.
because it was making the cards was when they were actually finally learning.
Yeah, and they were deciding what was important. What am I going to pay attention to, or what do I think she's going to pay attention to? Right? I mean, second guessing the teacher, but yeah, I don't know. Does anybody use model summary boards, model summary whiteboards?
sometimes, and
Yeah, typically as a warm up.
I have the kids do that also in a paper journal where they have to generate their own. I can give guidance, I can give structure to a degree, but they still have to decide what the most important thing is. And what's really crazy is they are sometimes profoundly good at writing unit summaries, but not necessarily keying in on what the big ideas are. You hear, like, I'll find all the definitions of all the vocabulary, and it's like, we already did that. That wasn't where this was supposed to go. What did we learn about atoms and their characteristics and behaviors in this unit? And it's hard to get kids to focus on that. But the idea of active engagement doesn't even necessarily mean that they are doing anything really obvious, because I can sit and listen to someone, say, at a conference speaking, and if I am internally actively engaged, talking with that person about their ideas and insight, or I'm just occasionally jotting a few things down, reading and highlighting a book, active engagement is not necessarily physically active, but it absolutely is mentally active. And I don't think some of our struggling kids recognize that when they see the kids who seem to effortlessly attend class and get good grades, is they do not see the real activity that those kids are doing in class.
Well, and you said the mental effort there. One of the sections, there were 2 really important things that stuck out to me. And one was how it's so important to challenge, but to do so at the right level. And that's what one of these sticky notes is match their intelligence, right? So you want to actually make learning conditions more difficult because it engages them mentally. And isn't that always our job as teachers? Is you want to make things challenging, but not too challenging, because then they get discouraged. So where is that line? That's constantly a debate I have.
Yeah, that's Vygotsky's zone of
Yeah.
proximal development, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
And that line is at 30 different places in one classroom.
Yes,
Very true.
yes.
Yes.
Which is the beauty of whiteboarding, right? Because what you get the students to do is reveal their level of understanding, and then we as teachers can respond to that. That is, to me, that is the beauty of whiteboarding. One of them.
That, and it's collective minds, right? It's distributed cognition. You don't just have whatever is going on inside of your cranium. You have 3 heads and lots of representation tools. And the tools and the representations and the brains are all working together to produce more than one person could produce.
Mhm.
Right. The other thing that I have to bring up in this section, active engagement, was this, where they were talking about the failure of the failure of pure discovery learning.
Oh, yeah.
And which was, it was so interesting for me to read, because when I was in grad school, that's all it was. It was constructivist. It was pure discovery learning. And I would sit there thinking, well, that's lovely, but like, in a chemistry classroom, like, how exactly am I just supposed to, like, put the ingredients out, put the reactants out on the counter, and just let's see what happens?
See
It's
what
not.
happens. Exactly, Zana.
I would have such conversations with a colleague, and Beth will know who I'm talking about. And he's like, yes, you just need to let them get out there. I'm like, this is not excuse me if any of you are teaching physics, but it's not like, balls and ramps and cars. They can really hurt themselves here. We need some, and they can't see what I'm trying to get them to understand. They need a lot more guidance than that.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to read that section. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But they can hurt themselves with the balls and ramps and carts too.
Oh, believe me, they can. They can hurt me too.
One of the things though is that
They might not set the room on fire though with the ramps and the.
True.
True. I added arousal and control because one of the papers I put in the folder for you guys to look at, anybody who's doing extended reading, is about motivation research that basically says that, that if you can arouse kids, they will engage. And if you can give them control, some measure of control over, what's going on, how they do a thing, what they do and how they do it, they'll stay engaged. So there's an article in there that's kind of interesting. If you're curious. The clock is ticking down. Shall we move on to the next one? All right. Error feedback. Would that be so bad?
So we kind of gravitated right to the whole testing and grades, because that seems to so dominate what we do, for better and worse. And that, tests become grades, when in fact there was a huge focus on regular testing, especially self-testing, to give yourself that own feedback and that repetition that's so necessary for the learning. I thought that was really interesting and a huge emphasis.
And there should be as many different ways to give them feedback as we can think of, so we can do it all the time, right? Informal feedback, with or without a grade, feedback from peers, feedback from self, automatic feedback using computer simulations and stuff, like the physics aviary, where they can try a problem and find out if the answer is right or not. Just trying to mix it up so they can get as much feedback as possible.
a lot of curricula now have some kind of online question bank, and they will actually have those kinds of questions where you have to answer them, but you find out immediately if you're right or wrong. And sometimes they go after you if you're not getting something and give you more, depending on how sophisticated they are. And I can see the value of that. Don and I both pointed out that we do some kind of informal assessment that's more than just the classroom discussions and whiteboarding and that kind of thing, where the top right one about she does pointless quizzes. I do something I call practice quiz that the students can retake, and based on what they got the first time, they can stop and try to fix things and check and then see if they got it right the next time. They can take it as many times as they want. I've learned not to let it go endlessly for grade, just to give them a motivating grade. I hate that that does that, but anyway. But the whiteboarding that we do and those kinds of discussions, there's so much feedback going on. Even tests can become a feedback item. Another thing that I do in my classes, I have taken my unit objectives and turned them into a short list with the questions on the test identified next to each one. And when they get the test back, their first job is not to find out what the right answer is, to figure out whether they mastered a concept or not.
Right.
And use the evidence of their test to decide whether or not they got it. And then they can talk to me about, go over test with me or whatever to see what went wrong, especially when they realize every question in a certain section went badly.
One thing I've done a couple of times this year that I really liked was I had on the day when we got a quiz that back, their first assignment in class was find someone who got right one of the ones that you got wrong, learn how to do it, and then you're going to present it to the class.
Very good. Interesting. I was at NSTA this past weekend, and I saw a poster session of, actually it was a couple of modelers, and they're now at their school in physics giving short quizzes every day that they give sort of standards-based feedback on, and they're doing it instead of homework. Here's some homework you can do, but homework's not required. If you want some practice problems, here they are. But every day we're going to, have a quiz on something, and you can retake them. And if you get a better score, that will replace your other grade. But evidently, grades and understanding has really perked up, and tests are just not stressful anymore for these kids because they are quizzing themselves. They feel like they're quizzing themselves every day. And didn't he say something about that? Like daily quizzing or testing helps you recognize what you still need to learn?
Yeah. Well,
or what you don't know.
Well, it also helps you learn it to begin with.
Right.
Yeah. There's a retrieval of practice where you have to come and get the information out of your head and make sense of it and communicate it some way.
Yeah.
Right. But the point was too that it doesn't have to be long. It has to be more frequent, even if it's not a long assessment or a long.
Yeah. 15 minutes of practice a day. Every day is much better than one whole day of practice once a week.
Which, don't you find that your musicians and your athletes tend to be better students because they get it? I use that analogy with the kids all the time. I'm like, wait, why is it that you think you can go through an entire unit and not do any practice, not do any homework, and just cram it all in a 3 pages of review the night before the test? You can't do that. You can't do that on the field. You can't do that for a concert.
No, and then they do that and they don't sleep. And you go to the consolidation.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm like thinking I need to copy these pages and give them to my students. You guys, they take pride in the fact that they will stay up late because they're working hard.
That's
It's like,
right.
are you kidding me?
Well, and they're all taking 3 AP classes
Yes.
because they
they're
have to
taking
get
4.
into Harvard, Princeton, or Yale. I don't know.
Or Stanford or Berkeley
Or Stanford or Berkeley. Right. All of the above. Okay. Well, so what do we got for consolidation? Sleep is good.
Well,
What else?
we didn't get there, I guess.
No. Well, I told you not to, right?
Yeah. So there's the retrieval practice, interleaving, space practice, that kind of suite of techniques kind of all falls in this category.
But But they really did spend the majority of that chapter about sleep, right?
I thought the sleep research information was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I actually looked for and found a couple of articles on sleep research, but I did not put them in the folder for you because they were heavily quantitative. And I thought, oh, that's not fun reading. You know, I don't know that I would read to the end. So why would I pass it along? You know, and obviously I haven't read them. So, you know, the articles I put in there are things I know about. Yeah.
Our district is actually super close to pushing our start time later. We've been studying this for years, and there's a neighboring district who did it, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And they went kind of rogue, and not many districts start later, but they start at like 8:45 in the morning. We start at 7:20 as our first bell. And so we're hoping we're about to do some rearranging of our schools, and we're hoping that we're going to be able to start a good hour later, which would be amazing.
So our school starts at 8:30, but many of our students, if not a majority, travel at least an hour to get to the school.
Oh.
Right. So it's not for the right reason, and because they don't get the extra sleep, the effect is lost.
I question, because the state of California just decided that no high school should start before 8:30. We had to do, middle school's not earlier than 8. We had to do kind of an end around that one because of how our school is structured and the timing of our classes that have to line up with the university classes because we share the campus and our kids take some of the classes there. But anyway, I would really question, because getting kids to go to sleep is its own issue.
Mm-hmm.
Really, are they going to get more sleep because we let them sleep later and start classes later? Or are they just going to stay up later because they don't have to get up so early? They do not have a good executive function for that thing.
But you can only do what you can do, right?
And then the parents have to get them to school, because we're, for a lot of students, and they have to be at work at a certain time. So they're still going to get dropped off and be hanging around school before school starts. So I have mixed feelings about this idea. Let's just start school later and kids will get more sleep.
I have a friend that teaches in the next city over in Syracuse, and he was saying they moved their start time later, and he goes, the kids are just now later. They still miss first period. They still come in late second period. So I don't know. We'll see if it actually does work, even though there's research that says that it does.
I think the thing we have to do is get the kids to buy the idea that sleep is good.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well,
So
we
Beth,
could probably be better. We could be better role models, probably.
Well, there is that.
Yeah. Well, I push it with my kids. There's almost a pride that they work so hard that they stay up till whatever, whoever goes to bed before midnight, and I say, you're dumb, that you cannot consolidate your learning. And I knew this before I read the book. You cannot consolidate your learning unless you get a certain amount of sleep. So you would be better off to go to bed when you're sleepy, get up a little early and study, because for one, you've had some time for your brain to start putting it together and file it and organize it and do the things your brain does with it. So you're starting not only with some sleep and a rested mind, you're also starting with your brain having done its job of organizing what you've already learned. And it's just like, that's win-win.
Yeah.
That's what I do when I have to grade stupid push. I go to bed as soon as I realize I'm getting tired, and then I get up early and do some more. I get more done.
Yeah.
I put a book in the chat. I highly recommend it. It was recommended to me actually by my sleep doctor. Believe it or not, I have a sleep doctor.
Huh.
Is Why We Sleep. And This guy basically spent his entire career researching sleep from the early days, and it's a really good book. And I think as science teachers, you guys would love it. I mean, he really does a thorough treatment of all these topics, and I can't recommend it enough.
Huh.
Like he does kind of the same thing
Why we sleep.
that Stanislaus does here with sleep, and he just delves into it, and it's fascinating read.
And do you sleep better now,
I do actually.
having read the book?
Having read the book. Yeah, well, I read the book to go to sleep.
Ah, there it is. So do I. I always read a book to go to sleep.
That's what I used my PChem book from college for.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we only have a few minutes left, and I did want to get to reconciling education and neuroscience. There were a lot of, there are a lot of things in there, little nuggets in there of really important stuff.
I don't like the word reconcile
No?
because it implies conflict and therefore a resolution is needed. I think that instead we should use neuroscience to guide education.
Okay.
And that's what I took away from the book is that, if you're going to design pedagogy that's effective, you should understand how the brain is going to work when you do this. So it's not really reconciliation. It's putting neuroscience on top of education instead of under or in conflict with.
Okay.
It does also
I
mean
know.
changing our practices.
It
Yeah.
does mean that.
I think the reconciliation comes because we are not in line with the current neuroscience.
Yeah.
Right. So it's education that has to reconcile itself with neuroscience.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll accept reconciling under those circumstances.
Okay. All right. Well, will you stipulate to that?
How's that?
Okay. Reconciling. All right. So,
So since there's a sticky note here about growth mindset, there's in the modeling materials, there's this thing you're supposed to do at the beginning of the year where you have the students write a letter to a friend about growth mindset. And I have done that, and I have found it makes absolutely not one iota of difference to the
interesting.
students who don't have a growth mindset.
Huh.
I have students who don't have a growth mindset. Every year I have them. There are the students who at the end of the year, their FCI score has not budged.
Right.
I
Yeah.
have those students.
I forget where I read it, but it was just this last year. I read an article that basically said the latest research shows that mindset training doesn't make a whole lot of difference in mindset, which contradicts what Carol Dweck said in her original book.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and some modeling teachers did action research on that. Holly McTurnan was one of them, probably 10, 12 years ago. And they did they did mindset training with their students, and they saw change over time. And it was they measured it, and it was significant. So maybe it's just maybe there's a dose effect.
Could it be that
You need to have purposeful doses of this on a regular schedule to make it happen. I don't know.
I would not use the word training in conjunction with having them do one exercise on growth mindset.
Right. Yeah. Right. No, my recollection of their research, and it was quite a while ago. So, but I have a copy of it somewhere if anybody's interested. And they did something a couple times a week for like a long period of time, maybe a semester.
Well, I think some of it is the messaging that we give students and what we reinforce in class too. You can bring it to their attention, but I know that sometimes I've watched kids change simply because they kept getting the message from me that I thought they could. And then reinforcing that, oh, look, you're getting better at this. And you are, I don't know, asking a lot better questions. I see you really engaging more. You are doing the things that are helping you learn and reinforcing that. But so I just come out and sometimes I just say, yes, we can grow. That's what the research shows. You may have a hard time believing it, but you are not stuck where you are. You are not. And just, I don't know that in and of itself is a lot that we're fighting against, but to keep on with an environment that says, I'm expecting you to grow, and yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Here I see it.
We
I
wouldn't be
remember now, it was in a training on assessment. And what they said was the biggest factor that affected kids' mindset was the teacher's mindset as reflected in the way they do things, the way they speak, the way they grade, the way they respond to things. If that all shows that you believe they can grow, then they'll believe they can grow.
Yeah. Well, I've always believed that if I think I can, I can. And if I think I can't, whatever it is, you know. I could never jump out of an airplane. Actually, that's not true. I have jumped out of an airplane 3 times. 3.
Oh my.
It's repeatable. Always with an instructor strapped to my back. I mean, you know, I'm only going to go so far. But when I was at ASU and I was teaching leadership training, or what do they call that? I can't remember. But it was a 1-unit course that everybody was required to take in the M&S program. One Saturday each year, we would go down to the skydiving place and jump out of planes with sensors strapped to our bodies and collect data. Because we like to do science. You know, we also like to prove that we were fearless. All right. Well, you know what? I'll stick around if anybody wants to stick around, but our hour is up, and I've really enjoyed reading this book with you guys, and we should think of another good book to read.
Colleen, I just wanted to share with everybody that I put in the chat the link to fill out in case anyone needs a certificate of attendance for PD purposes.
Oh yeah, and I am going to put in the chat a link to the folder that has this week's yeah, the folder. Where is it? Right there. Copy.
And thank you all for welcoming me back for part 3. I didn't make 1 and 2, but I'm like, I'm going to get there for part of it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got here for this part. This was really helpful. This was good.
Whatever you can, you know, I mean, it's all good stuff.
It is.
Right? I mean, this is not a class. There's no grades.
Yep.
I just want to say thank you for introducing us to this book, which is a pretty amazing book.
It is a great book.
It's definitely on the reread this over the summer list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you could get all kinds of different nuggets out of it reading it a second time, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I think so. Well, I've read it 3 times now. I read it a couple of years ago because David Heston has ordered me to read it a couple of years ago. And then when I agreed to do this last fall, I read it again, and then I have read it again each part just before we were going to meet, so that I knew what I knew.
And you knew what you didn't know, so you could learn.
And I knew what I didn't know, and I was reminded of things. It's like, aha, yes, of course. All right.
All right.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Great
Bye.
to see
Thanks
you
again.
all.